Today we're reading Acts 18, verses 18 through 28. And Paul, after this, tarried there yet a good while, and then took his leave of the brethren, and sailed thence into Syria, and with him Priscilla and Aquila, having shorn his head in Cenchrea, for he had a vow. And he came to Ephesus, and left them there, but he himself entered into the synagogue, and reasoned with the Jews. When they desired him to tarry longer time with them, he consented not, but bade them farewell, saying, I must by all means keep this feast that cometh in Jerusalem, but I will return again unto you, if God will. And he sailed from Ephesus. And when he had landed at Caesarea, and gone up, and saluted the church, he went down to Antioch. And after he had spent some time there, he departed, and went over all the country of Galatia and Phrygia in order, strengthening all the disciples. And a certain Jew named Apollos, born in Alexandria, an eloquent man, and mighty in the Scriptures, came to Ephesus. This man was instructed in the way of the Lord, and being fervent in the Spirit, he spake and taught diligently the things of the Lord, knowing only the baptism of John. And began to speak boldly in the synagogue, whom when Aquila and Priscilla had heard, they took him unto them, and expounded unto him the way of God more perfectly. And when he was disposed to pass into Achaia, the brethren wrote, exhorting the disciples to receive him, who when he was come, helped them much which had believed through grace. For he mightily convinced the Jews, and that publicly, showing by the Scriptures that Jesus was Christ. We don't know how long exactly Paul stayed in Corinth. In today's passage it says he stayed a good while after this, referring to the last incident with the Jewish leaders in Galilee. And he had been there a year and a half before that. But eventually he decided it was time to go. Here is where we see the friendship that had blossomed between him and Aquila and Priscilla as they decide to go with him. We also have a quick remark about a shaved head and a vow. Some people read this to say that Aquila was the one who had made the vow and shaved his head. They base this on the fact that he was mentioned just before that, even though previously Luke had mentioned the couple in the reverse order. Others believe this is referring to Paul, since that's who Luke is highlighting in this portion of the book. We're not told anything more. Making vows was a practice among the Jews. For example, the Nazirite vow in Numbers 6. But we're not told what type of vow this was, or even for what purpose it was taken. The group arrives in Ephesus, where Paul goes into the synagogue to preach. But he doesn't stay very long here. He's determined to go to Jerusalem for a feast, very likely a Passover celebration. He then goes back to Caesarea and back to Antioch, where his missionary journey began. If you follow that on the map, you would see that he went to Jerusalem after arriving in Caesarea, and then would have gone north back to Antioch. And in verses 23, we see him start on his third missionary journey. About the time Paul was doing that, we were introduced to a man named Apollos, who was born in Alexandria in Egypt. He was a Jew and knew the Scriptures very well. He had participated in John's baptism, but he was not a follower of Jesus. Aquila and Priscilla, who were still in Ephesus, heard him speak, and they brought him in and taught him the teachings about how Jesus was the Messiah. His knowledge of the Old Testament made him realize right away the truth about Jesus. And because of that, he became a powerful preacher of the gospel. While this passage may seem like a lot of background information, it does show us how God was working. Aquila and Priscilla's association with Paul is what placed them in Ephesus, ready to instruct Apollos, whose background, skills, and training made him a great fit for furthering the gospel. We also see God moving Paul from place to place, reassuring the churches and leading new converts to Christ. I guess what this passage ought to inspire us to ask is, what is God doing in our lives? And how far are we willing to go to serve Him?